Hi, everyone. Welcome to the July 15th, 2023 Generative Writing Workshop. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about setting, and then we're going to just jump right in and write. Though I should ask everybody, you all disappeared. Like, all I can see is Jessie.
Did I disappear too? I feel like I should fit in.
You shouldn't. They're normally here. It's like a black void.
Yeah.
Here's Sarah. Do we want to do a short reading that would be inspiring to help people get warmed up also?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about setting first today. And this is in 529, it's the fundamentals of fiction. And I joke, as you know, in my announcements that it's just a class on revision, because you get one story idea, you'll pick one of the three that you're turning in tomorrow. And that's the only thing you get to work on for the rest of the term. And you just when you think you can't revise anymore, it turns out you can, which is sort of exciting. And as a point, the first draft you turn in will be module 4. And it has a top limit of 2,500 words, and that limit stays for the entire course. And then the bottom limit in module 4 is 1,500 words. And then for the final project, the bottom, like the minimum amount of words you can write is 2,000. So you have like a 500 word sweet spot. And people get super frustrated with this requirement. And I have several testimonial people here who will say having a limitation actually can make your writing better. I also had a few students who are like, that's wrong. That's okay if that's your opinion. I don't agree with your opinion, which is fine. We don't have to agree, but it's all to say, man, my sister told me that I say that a lot, and now I'm aware of my speech tick. I'm saying that when you have to limit your writing, especially if you're like, I want to say all these things, well, maybe you could say them in fewer words, shorter paragraphs, maybe really condense your sentences. And by the end of 529, we're going to be asking you to think about every word that's in your sentence. So like, what role does diction play? How those words are put together? How can you use syntax to like create rhythm and meaning? And with that compression to reach 2,500 words, it's hard, but it's really important. And I think what you figure out by the end of English 529 is that all the best writing is as dense as if it's almost flash fiction. Like all the best writing has that kind of compression all the way through entire novels. And so 529 is just practicing a short story with a narrative arc, but like every chapter in a novel has a narrative arc. And so this kind of practice, if you're doing long form writing, really teaches you to have everything count. And then if you're a short writer, you know, especially I write a lot of flash fiction while I'm writing my other books. And there's a narrative arc in flash. There's usually a narrative arc in poetry, but it's a different kind of arc, right? And so this class is great because no matter what genre you're writing in, it's asking you to really get into your language. You haven't grown more arms yet. That's hilarious. Okay. That's in the chat, which I don't post when I post these. So setting is important in so many ways. And what you'll find is that in this first turn-in that you're doing for tomorrow in English 529, setting is all grouped together. It's like, what is the physical setting? But also, what does your character see, smell, taste, touch, hear? I'm getting so good at the senses from teaching this class. And so, but in the future, from module 4 forward, each time I think it's 4, 7, and 9, you turn in these drafts, the sensory detail and the physical description will be broken out from each other. And so today, as we're moving into something that works on setting in module 3, and you're going to be thinking about that, you read, it's the August 2051. It's the Ray Bradbury story, Come Soft Rains, whatever that one is. And the setting, of course, is everything. The physical setting is everything. But then also you can think about the ways that the house in the story becomes a character itself. And does it have sensory detail or not? I'll let you decide for yourself. That's one of the stories we read. And then we read another one that I've now forgotten. So you'll be writing about those in one of those in your discussion, and you'll be doing your peer review. And in the peer review, I have given a lot of advice in the announcements, and I'm 100% sure that Jesse and Donna both have read the announcements because you asked me questions. But for anybody who on the off chance is watching this, the announcements are sort of everything that'll give you mind clues for how to succeed in the class. The class is created by course designers. That's my interaction to help interpret the course designer intent as I think it is. And so please do read the announcements, and please do subscribe to the general questions discussion board, where I've also put in some expectations and other information. Hey, all you old timer experienced people, what am I forgetting?
You definitely got the less is more, and then don't be afraid to cut out so much when, or no, are they just writing it right now?
They're just
For the
doing
first time.
3 story ideas due tomorrow.
Just kidding, that's next time's advice.
Don't be afraid to slice. Yeah. And that's
So so what's due tomorrow? This is Donna, by the way.
yeah.
So
it's-
what's due tomorrow is I've already written mine because I like to get my work done and then review it and edit it 500,000 times until I start going insane. And so when you said, the senses, if it is not like, I'm not great at short stories. I've never written a short story, actually. So this is new for me, and I'm actually very excited to do it. But if you don't have all senses, I'm so much more of a dialogue person. So now I'm thinking back of what I've already written, and I have dialogue. Is that not an appropriate way to go about this?
It's a very appropriate way to go about this. And
Okay.
I almost want to ask again the old timers, when you have dialogue, what's a great way for Donna to be sure she's bringing in sensory detail and keeping her dialogue moving forward without using awkward dialogue text?
No adverbs.
No adverbs, definitely. What else?
Okay.
Like, what's a great thing to replace a dialogue tag with?
An
That
act.
will also give you a chance to do, yeah, you're on it, Sarah. Also give you a chance to do sensory detail. Sarah was saying it. So one of the things that we do, just because I don't want us to have to do this all morning, is we put action beats in. So instead of saying he said or she said, you could have, hey, you're not listening to me. Sarah picked up the cat and walked away, but that had no sensory detail in it. But you get the idea. You would have an action
Okay.
beat, but like maybe they're rubbing their finger over something smooth or, anything. Write what you want before you write what other people advise is one of the only ways you'll enjoy writing in revisions. That's so true.
Okay.
So write your story like you're doing, and in your revision phase, when you read it a million times, just be looking out for the places where instead of like just a he said, maybe you would have, I don't even know what person you're writing it in, but maybe you would have an action happen that would tell us, like he gazed out over the gathering storm clouds. Okay, that's physical description, right? Or
Right.
he sucked on the cut on his thumb, which stung and tasted like iron. I can never do this. I give a lot of verbal feedback, and wait till you hear me fumble over this in my verbal feedback too. I'm not really good on the fly, but those things would be sensory detail. And one of our favorite things.
Okay, that's super helpful.
Go ahead.
No, I said that's super helpful to know, just for someone who's not that experienced with this. So that's a helpful hint.
Yeah, and I mean, grade wise, you're probably usually fine, but you might get a top score, and I still might advise how you could do it better, is how I would describe how I teach. And then one of our other favorite things to do, and this is, a benefit for being here right now, is you can practice something called synesthesia, which is sort of mixing up sensory detail. So for example, it might be cold outside and a character might say it tastes like snow, and obviously that's not a thing, But when you mix up the senses like that, it's kind of fun. You're like, oh, what does snow taste like? And as soon as I said that, anybody who's been in snow has been like, technically, I think there is a taste like snow. So,
Especially if it's yellow.
oh, no, ew. But yes, that wasn't what I was thinking of. You're not wrong, I guess, Sarah. Okay, so and again, this class is progressive. If you hardly have sensory detail, I'm not going to smash you for it in the first assignment. I'm going to encourage you to improve some areas of it. And if you don't have it by module 9, like if you've received my advice and don't, figure out how to do better with it, I might give you like a proficient instead of an exemplary. It's grade wise, I'm not very committed to grades nearly as much as I'm committed to people learning, but I am also committed to the reason that I give important instructions in like the announcements and the general questions discussion board is that in the publishing world, there's always these specific pieces of guidance in the submission guidelines. And sometimes there's nothing and it's easy to submit. I'm playing around in the New York City Midnight Flash Challenge. Like I submitted, and then 2 months later, they tell you you made it to the next round, which I did, yay. And I should find out again in, I don't know, I think a week or two, if I made it to the next round, or maybe like 5 weeks. Anyway, and I almost disqualified myself for the round I'm in right now because I had not paid attention to the words, the action has to happen in the flash I'd written. I had implied the action and I caught it right before I submitted it. And there's only a 24-hour window to submit in. So redirections, sometimes people are very strong about you must have your contact information on the front page. Other people are like, nothing identifying can be on what you submit. So I'm trying to encourage the practice of reading carefully and sussing out details in what I write, because it's an important part of being a writer who publishes. And even if people are planning to publish their own work, through self-publishing, you have to have that kind of attention to detail to be good enough writing for people beyond like your close family to read it. So it's a practice that's important. How's this going? Any questions? I am looking to see where I can read something to you all to kind of get you in the mode for writing now. So 3 of you are actually in the kaleidoscope this time. Would you think I should read Danny Boy to them? Yeah, okay. It's a little bit long. Normally we read something super micro and this is just a flash, but it's hilarious. And we did this a couple, like maybe 3 generative writing workshops ago, but there's nothing wrong with doing it again because this is your first time. So this is a flash fiction, which means it's less than 1,000 words. And it's called Danny Boy by James Callan, and it was published in Maudlin House. When my wife and I considered a name for our son, deliberating between the traditional, the lyrical, the new age unique, we ultimately decided on Finn, 1 week after his birth. This compact 4-digit title fit him perfectly, hence the agreement. But its designation to this brand new human being in our lives came with a cost. While I wouldn't change it now, nor do I regret the choice to name our child Finn, this decision did equate to a certain measure of loss. Let me explain. Allow me to explain. I had to abandon a lifelong desire to trudge in the snow, ideally in a hedge maze in the darkness of night, calling out to my boy, reprimanding him, demanding he slow down and return to me, tracking his light footsteps in the fresh snowfall, which would eventually lead me to him, yelling, growling, even a 2-syllable 5-digit siren song. That is the name which my son is ultimately not called, Danny. Why? Well, if any of that chasing your small boy, snowy hedge maze stuff seems familiar to you, it is probably because it recounts a famous scene from a well-known movie. Imagine Jack Nicholson drunk on ghost booze, that is Jack Daniels doubles that do not exist yet have their desired effect, axe in hand, fresh from conversing with malignant spirits. Lloyd, the bartender who is incorporeal, Mr. Grady, who was the caretaker, invigorated by the murder of an innocent cook, limping after a staircase stumble, yet mobile enough, fueled by madness and a need to kill his family. Did I want this for myself? Well, no, not actually. But I always dreamed of scolding my boy. No acts necessary. Calling out to him raspy, threatening, big bad wolf delivery. Danny, Danny, which of course is the name of Jack Nicholson's child in the wonderful Stanley Kubrick masterpiece, The Shining. How cool would it be for my son, hypothetically named Danny, to spill his Lego box or kick the cat or flick his toothpaste intentionally on the mirror, and then, having witnessed this, for me to go faux crazy, eyes manic, affecting that madman persona and howling out, Danny! Honestly, the notion has me desperate to live it out in reality. Finn is 5 years old. Is it too late to change my child's name? Maybe I will have another kid, maybe another boy. Maybe it will be a girl, and I can still name her Danny, or Danny, or Danny, like Daenerys Targaryen. I could lead up to a whole Jack Nicholson bit with a Game of Thrones inspired warning. Don't wake the dragon. I don't know. Maybe I can just get my jollies watching The Shining twice a year like I have for the last 25. Ever since I saw it at age 13 alone in the dark, that experience left the most beautiful array of scars. When I travel, I elect to stay at cheap motels, not exactly the Overlook Hotel, but it's the best I can manage, all I can afford. I asked for room 237. There, I stay up all night, waiting for a waterlogged old lady to emerge from the bathroom door, which I leave ajar. It is never worth it. The pruned crone never shows her half-rotten face. Maybe this is for the best. Maybe things will come together if I continue to try. Maybe I can get by on these desperate attempts to fill a vacancy that hovers like a ghost in my gut. Can I keep this sort of behavior up for a lifetime? Do I have a choice? Or who knows, maybe I'll have that other child. Maybe Finn, as an older brother, can play the part of Wendy, the frantic, horrified housewife. My neighbor, who I hate, can play the cook. Maybe I'll kill him for real. Rachel, my wife, is a videographer. Maybe she could film it. Maybe something is wrong with me. Whatever. Point is, I missed out on something beautiful when I named my son Finn. Still, I love the kid with all my soul. I'd die for him, easy. I'd rip out my guts for him, tear open my heart. After all, it beats for him. Really, it does. I would chase him down, axe in hand, and call out among this dark, snowy night. I'd see that he had retraced his footsteps in the snow. I'd see that he had tried to outsmart me. I'd smile, deranged, and let it go. I'd let him win. I'd whisper out on the vapor of my very last breath, Finn. And you know something? It wouldn't carry a single syllable of regret. All right, everybody. Was there any setting in that?
So yeah, the Shining setting, the entire, final scene.
Yeah, I mean, so you have a snowy night of hedges in your head, right?
Yeah. Love the movie. Immediately went there,
Do we know where the speaker of this story is located as he tells this to us?
Our world.
Would you say, Suzanne?
Oh, like our world with those pop culture references.
Yeah, he's somewhere in the contemporary time.
Yeah.
Like he's suggesting that he's sitting next to you telling a story to you. He doesn't seem to be sitting at the Overlook Hotel, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park in Colorado. He's not there, right? Although he's put our minds there. So what's tricky about the setting of this piece? Y'all are very quiet. Randall, come on.
I felt like it was like he was sitting there telling me a story, like joking almost. Like I felt like I was sitting with him at a bar almost, and
Yeah.
he was telling like this kind of funny thing very casually. But although I'm one of those weird people that don't watch television, except for the New York Yankees. But I have seen that movie, so I immediately knew who they were talking about right from the beginning of the, the story. I knew exactly where it was going, but he does it in such a casual way that it keeps it like almost like a conversation between you and the author, although you're just listening to him. That's how I took it.
Like, definitely the bar is such a great example because he's not even leaving room for you to comment on what he's saying. This is him telling you a story. And if he were to choose this story for English 529, I'd be like, dude, I love it, but there's no setting in here. There's implied setting. But one of the things that you're supposed to be doing is have the setting do a job for you. Now, the Shining setting does a job. So I would have like this complicated moment grading this for 529 because the character, the narrator is not set. He is not set in a location, but he's asking you to use a location to have an experience, and it's not quite the same thing. So in 529, I would hope that you are actually having somebody speak to us from a location, somebody using that physical setting to help create the mood and tone of what they're writing about. And then that person having sensory detail, even if this James Callan guy had written, I could feel the smooth wood in my hand of that axe, there would be some sensory detail, but there isn't any. So in an example of negative, not meaning not positive, but negative as an absence, this story is lacking a lot of what you're being graded on at 529. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, Sarah wrote, he's expecting the reader to bring a lot of understanding without him straight out saying it. And there's a writing group I live extremely rurally, and there's a small writing group in our local library that I run. And there's a 13-year-old kid in it and 2 14-year-olds, as well as some other people. And they had no idea what The Shining was. And so with Sarah, yeah, he's expecting us to understand something. But what was super interesting was that they were able to gain something from it, because even if you've never read The Shining, he gives or seen it, he gives enough detail about the movie that you can get there with this. So yeah, he is being descriptive, and that's the most important thing. Just think about the ways that, I think it would hurt this story to be set in a physical setting. And so if the person had given me 3 story options, and this one, as good as it is, was not set anywhere and the other 2 were, I would probably advise in English 529 that he would choose the one that had physical setting that we know about. And there's so many cool things, like the kid spitting toothpaste on the mirror, and immediately anybody who's seen the movie is going, oh my gosh, red rum, so he did a lot with his details in here. But I want to get us writing, because we have been at this for a while and we are not writing yet. So I have a simple start, because I knew there would be a couple of new people today. The old people, you've seen this prompt before, but I think it's a great one to do if somebody hasn't been doing this before. And what I'll do is I'm going to throw the prompt in the chat, and the prompt was going to be, and I say start a flash piece just because in 6 minutes you don't have time to write more, but I am encouraging you to try to create narrative arc if you can, kind of a beginning, middle, and end. And the prompt is start a flash piece with, I brought you here because, or, if you're writing about a fictional character that you're writing in the third person with, it could be, he brought them here because, she brought him here because, they brought them here because, and I've got it in the chat for you. And so what happens is I'm just going to be like, on your mark, get set, right? And when I start the timer, if your brain is like, which sometimes it does, just start writing the same thing over and over again. Like, I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to write. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Also, highly recommend you try writing by hand because it engages both sides of your brain hemispheres in a way that typing doesn't. And I have an article that says that I don't have here. So if you can write by hand, fantastic. That's really good for your brain. I do most of my writing on a keyboard, but I will start a new project by hand almost every time because it does kick things off in the right direction. Okay, so you can choose your fictional character, you can write autobiographically. Really, the whole point of this moment is to have writing happen, even if it doesn't follow the prompt. This is just a chance to generate a little bit of writing. You feeling pretty good?
Sure. Yeah. Let's
Okay.
try.
and if it makes you comfortable or uncomfortable, you can always turn off your video and your sound while you're writing. It doesn't matter, your choice. And I'm going to ask you to, on your marks, get set, write. 1 minute left. Boy, that minute goes fast. Time to drop your pencils. Time is up. No more writing. Please come back. Turns out I can't edit much in 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Meaning that I'm working on a chapter I'm turning in for something today, and I did not get, I got a sentence done
That's still a
while you were
sentence.
writing. So that was okay. How did it go?
Yeah, it went. It certainly went.
Was there writing that happened?
Yeah. Like a good paragraph or so.
Yeah, that's what matters. That's awesome. How about my usuals? How did it go?
Not what I anticipated.
Awesome. That's my favorite.
Fine.
Oh, good. I'm so excited. And probably it looked like Donna was actually driving, so I'm guessing that she probably wasn't writing. But I hope she was writing in her head. Okay, so well, here's Donna.
Yes, I was thinking up a story in my head, but I could not write.
Fair enough.
I'll do it later though. I will do it later.
Okay, sounds great.
Feel free to post it in Slack and we can comment on it if you are open to comments.
Super, thank you. I love feedback. Feedback's my favorite.
Oh, good. We need more of those people in SNHU. So many people are terrified about feedback, and I think I'm hoping, and I should have talked about that more, that I said I got off of the announcement thing, but my announcements hopefully set it up to be I want it to be a positive, place where there's constructive criticism happening. Definitely criticism, but couched in the proper way.
I love it. That's I think when someone gives me compliments about my writing, I almost, not that I ignore it, but it's like, it's not helpful. Like, okay, that a great storyline, blah, blah, blah. But what needs to be improved? Because that's how you grow.
Right. So you're like, thank you, but
Yeah.
can I do better?
Yes. Unfortunately, I had an editor like that she was just raving. And I was like, okay, it can't be that good. I'm not, I'm not Stephen King. I'm sure of that. So I'm sure like you could say something negative, not negative or helpful. I would rather use that word.
Something that would improve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking for people to read back what you got in this writing session. And I'm hopeful that as we're listening to the people read, we'll find what really draws us in and we get kind of excited about hearing. But also if anything tosses us out of what the person wrote, we can mention that, all with the understanding that in 6 minutes, the whole point was to turn off your inner editor. So now that editing can go back to it, it's, it's fair to make an editing comment, but of course the person didn't edit before we got to where we're reading. So.
I'll go.
Okay, great, Sarah, thanks.
And no qualifying when you read.
No qualifying before you read. Though we've started a new thing in the writing group at OMAX Library, and we say it's brilliant because everybody feels so uncomfortable and they want to do all the qualifiers. So now we just start off with, well, it's brilliant, of course. So
Nice.
It's brilliant, Sarah. What you got?
I brought you here because it's time you finally face it, the bench. I refuse to sit on it even now. It's wooden planks, splintery and bleached from sitting in the sun for at least the last 40 years. I closed my eyes and instantly returned to the 4-year-old brought out to this very bench. What do you want from me? My jaws are clenched so tightly I can barely get the words out. This bench did no damage to you. It's okay to let it just be a bench. We both sit in front of it in the grass juices that had recently been mowed. The bench seems smaller than I remembered it from here, though I could smell his body odor despite the mown grass. Clenching my eyes shut again as tightly as my jaw, I saw him, heard him. Take off your clothes, little girl. I have something to show you. My jaws unhinged spontaneously to free the acidic bile from my throat.
Holy moly, Sarah. That's been waiting to be written for a long time. Amazing. And so for the rest of you, we've been following Cassie's story for more than a year, and this bench has been prominent. So it has extra meaning because we know exactly what happened here. We know all of that stuff. So I just want to let you know that a bunch of us are insiders. But everybody, what drew you into the story?
Your sensory detail. Holy cow. I really like the grass juices. I wrote sensory and I underlined it 3 times just because you did so much of it and I felt like I was there, and I felt like for any character like yourself who's been through some trauma and you're trying to face that thing, you hit the mark so well. So where you're oof. Especially for the people who haven't who don't know about Cassie, you did a really good job.
Thanks.
Yeah, I've started doing a thing whenever we're reading these of ticking off boxes while other people read of which senses they're hitting. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you hit all 5, which was really cool. And like she said, the bench, as a signifier of everything that it means, it's hard to put into words exactly how that relates to everything else without getting into all the other things you've written, but it was very powerful because it's just this, just the bench carries so much if you know the rest of the story.
Quick question though. Think of this as a flash piece and try to empty your brain of what you know. Could it stand alone like it is?
Oh, absolutely. It still holds plenty without any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
agree.
I don't know anything about it, I guess the context of the story, but even alone, it was very impactful just to hear from my end, from the smell of the grass and how that mixes with this man's body odor up until the very end where she starts to get ill from, I guess, recalling all of that. It was pretty effective just in that space.
Yeah. I mean, more than pretty effective. I think that
Yeah.
I think that it could be a submittable flash micro.
Thank you.
Donna, you want to add something?
I think that again, not knowing the context, it actually made my stomach tense. I tensed up as I was listening, which I think was the intention, because I was like, oh no, what's going to happen next? And I think that kind of kept me really engaged.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And there's a huge depth to this story because we want to know what happened to somebody, but there's 40 years gap. And the fact that the narrator is back at this bench, unable to touch it, 40 years later, we know from Take Off Your Clothes, Little Girl, something awful happened at this bench. But we also know that hasn't been it's been an important part of the character's life. And I think the word I love the most, or the phrase I love the most, was, why can't I just let it be a bench? Just let it be a bench. And we know why, but that question, I mean, I thought that told us everything about the character, how far that character's come in 40 years. And the fact that she's back at the bench is really, I thought it was a super positive sign that she's like, I'm gonna take this horrible thing and make it fit my life somehow, because I'm tired of where it's been in my life, as what I felt like I was hearing in this, because she's like, just let the bench be a bench, because it's just a bench. Yeah. Oh, Sarah, so excited. I'm glad. I love it when people say it didn't go where they thought it was going to go, because usually it goes somewhere it needed to go. That was fantastic.
Mm, thank you.
That's wonderful. Wow. Okay. Who's next? Thanks, Sarah.
I can go next.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay, bear with me while I try to figure out how to hold the phone and read. Okay. I brought you here because you demonstrated exemplary service and fortitude. The general's medals clanked as he walked back and forth across the desk like a pendulum. Alina's stomach exploded with butterflies as she fought to keep a mask cemented to her face. This was it. She clasped her hands together and squeezed. Alina Masters, you have hereby been extended a personal invitation from Jasper Fallon, Elite One, to join the ranks and fight for your nation. It was everything Alina had dreamed of. The glossy walnut desk only held one form with a shiny gold pen. The general stopped pacing, sliding the paper towards her. The pen was heavy. She had only held, when she was lucky, light pens where the ink wouldn't flow. This was it. She signed her name, Alina Masters, champion.
Nicely done. What stood out for people? What drew you into the story or made you feel like you were there?
Yeah, I guess there's this overall sense of like being proud that I was really drawn to in the way it was told. Like I felt proud for it too, you know.
I liked how at the beginning it didn't feel out of place, but then it like took this switch and made it more fictional, and maybe off-world even. And I don't know, like the vibe that I got was that she didn't really want the attention, maybe. I don't know if I got that right, but I want to hear more of it, because now what is she gonna do?
I'm gonna hop in real quick and just say, I kind of got a vibe that everything she's ever wanted is to fight for a nation, but there's just a little something wrong. Like, I don't know what. I don't know if signing this piece of paper is gonna, there's just a little something wrong. And I got that in the first couple words. I can't even tell you which ones. If I were doing this critique as in a discussion board or something, I would go back and find the words that made me feel that and quote them and say, I can't even tell you why, but these words make me feel like something's going wrong here. And then yet you let us be the author, let us be as fooled as Alina's going to be, Alina. Because there's like the shiny mahogany desk, the heavy pen, you know, the medals on the general's chest. This has got to be okay. All the indicators, like those would be the pieces of evidence I'd put in my discussion board to say these are indicators of authority, of power, and this has been the right power. So I think we're going to find out that it's a corrupt government somewhere down the line, because she's not had pens that flow well, and that's an indicator that she comes out of some form of poverty or need and has been swept up in this kind of government, and now she's going to end up leading a rebellion in about 60 pages. Am I right? Tiny little editing thing.
We learned about this. Oh yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I love the intuition. Like we learned about that chapter, or that the sixth sense from that chapter in the 532 book, and I was like, I want to try this intuition. So it was perfect. I'm happy that worked.
You did, yeah. That's the Ron Rosell book. He talks about the sixth sense. The one tiny little editing thing that you would catch if you were going back and working on it is that it was like the general was swinging like a pendulum instead of his medals. And I know you intend that to be his medals, but that's just how it got out.
Maybe
Emma
he's
and
just
Donna?
got a lot of style.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have anything to add? Yeah, he's walking with a little bit of,
Yeah.
Just swagging.
My takeaway from it was that there's that feeling whenever you're in a really formal setting before people, getting an award or listening to politicians speak or something, where it almost feels unreal because of how ridiculous it is. And that's kind of the feeling I got from like the focus on the pen that flowed so well, the metals clinking on his chest and everything. It gave me that feeling of like she was hiding behind the mask and she wasn't being who she really was, but nothing around her was real either. And I thought you captured that well, because those, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but those situations always feel so absurd to me.
Kind of absurdity feels natural to me in the military. I'm not in the military anymore, but you know what I mean? Like, and I thought you captured that well too. Like the sense of ceremony, except for it's just the two of them. So pretty weird. We'll give Donna just a chance, just in case, which is probably in scary traffic. Okay, so Sarah and Suzanne have read. Jesse and Randall are left.
I'll go.
Okay.
Yay. All right. I brought you here because I know what you was up to, sniffing around my woods in your fancy suit and leather shoes. Too close to my stills, so's I'd have to notice. Did you think a Jasper like you'd go unnoticed in this here holler? Soon as you left that first cabin, folks came running to tell me all about you, Mr. Surveyor, sent by the big man in Frankfurt himself. I guess the folk in Frankfurt didn't warn yous that we don't like outsiders in these parts. Especially don't like them putting their feet on my land and their nose in my shine. And that's all I have.
Who are you in, everybody?
You did a very good job of
I
capturing the
really-
dialogue part without without making it like there's a line you can cross with dialogue where it becomes it detracts from the piece, but you didn't reach that point. Your dialogue made the scene feel very realistic. You had very few setting details there, but I could see the holler where this was going on at. So
Donna unmuted. Do you have something, Donna?
Yes, so I really liked it. It was like it had a little attitude, and so it made you pay attention, saying, oh, okay, what's she going to say now? And the character took control and dominated the scene, which I thought was very powerful.
And Suzanne, I know you have something because there was a.
Throw it at me, girl.
Oh yeah, no, I really liked so this is gonna be like a twofold, but I really did like Randall was saying that dialogue and how like you made the character like I saw the character without like you like giving all this description about the character. But one thing that I also wanted to mention is dang, you did so good at like reading it where like you gave the different like characterizations even just like through your voice, and I honestly struggle with reading my work out loud, so I was like, dang, I wish I could do that.
Thanks. It helps that it's in my accent. So.
Your accent isn't as strong as your character's accent. but-
No.
yeah, you were speaking the language of my people.
Yeah. Are you Appalachian too?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we lost Donna. That's okay though. But I need to watch for her to come back in. Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. Jesse, oh, how fun. Like you were using dialect for this this region. And I want to tell you, the second that we had a suit, leather shoes, and a shine, I was like, those shoes, I could just picture them getting muddy. I could picture like branches and things getting on this lovely suit. Like the suit was so out of place that you actually evoked setting in the negative accents, like we've talked about, because we all have a conception in our minds of what a holler looks like. And for some of you, like Jesse and Randall, it's probably more realistic than my version of a holler, but I have one in my mind, especially because I've read the Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek, you know.
Me too.
Yeah, and I basically threw him somewhere in Troublesome Creek and then was walking him around in a suit and leather shoes. And you can do that with a detail like that. There's nothing wrong with implied setting. I don't have to talk about mud or brambles or any of those things because you showed us how awful it would be to be in that suit because that person did not belong. And I almost had your narrator dressed also because I knew how that person would be dressed to be in Holler. So that was fun and well implied. I mean, I just thought that was really nicely done. Yeah, I can't wait to hear more about the Appalachian world because Randall doesn't typically write in this world. He writes in another one.
Oh, okay. All my
Yeah.
short stories are gonna be there, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to them. I'll try not to put the bookwoman in your stories, but now I've got that in my head.
I don't think she'll be there. I think it'll be okay.
Well, awesome. That was a great first start. I'm so excited that you joined us and wrote that. Randall, do you have anything to add?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, the detail of the shoes, you know, we talked before about contingent realities and how it pulls you into, you know, what your experiences are. I immediately saw the bad guy from the movie Lawless. I don't know if any of you have seen that or not, but that was who I saw. It's a movie about some brothers that run moonshine during the Prohibition era.
Okay.
And they send a federal agent to come get him, and he's super straight laced like that. So
Nice. And I should add for Jesse, just contingent reality is a term I learned from a colleague at the Air Force Academy. And it's about how when we arrive at this moment, we're sharing, we all bring our experiences to it. And so your reality is contingent on what in your past informs how you perceive things. And yeah, for Randall, you know, his was informed by this movie he saw and the fact that he's probably in a holler right now. I don't know. Great. And then what I accidentally said, I said, do you have anything to add? And what I meant to say, are you ready to read your work?
oh yeah,
Yeah, great.
I'm not hardly in a holler with this piece, but we'll see where we go. So
Okay.
I brought them here because Station Lambda is overrun. The Naga have killed everyone in the southern quadrant. Sergeant Lane cursed as he fed a fresh magazine into his rifle. There's nowhere else for them to go. Move for the shuttle fields, but it's already packed with refugees. You'll never get close enough. The hovercraft accelerated away, and Lane turned his head to avoid the sudden blast of dust. His view swept across the distant sky, and all memory of the refugees fled his mind. The Naga fleet was filling the lower atmosphere, so many of the organic vessels that it seemed like the fingers of a starving god closed on the world. Their warrior organisms were thundering across the plains below, eerily silent other than the thunder of hooves and the rustle of a million cotton plates. The artillery boomed, explosions blossoming and throwing broken bodies like a child discarding toys. It was like spitting into a hurricane. The smell of death washed ahead of them on the breeze. One of the men in the trench nearby was screaming, "We're all gonna die." "Like hell we are," Lane said. "You're a goddamn Marine. Start acting like it." He slammed the bolt home on his weapon. "Kill them all."
I just would like to bow down to the king of figurative language. What drew you in, everybody?
Everything. At first I was like, it's gonna be fantasy. And then when you switched it to like the sci-fi, I was like, okay, I still like it. But I really liked, especially I wrote down the phrase, I couldn't write it down, but like the sentence where you say like organic vessels and then there was more. But then I like how you later say like the warrior vessels. And so I was trying to be like, ooh, all these like fun different subtypes. And then of course that ending with it got me, especially like hanging out with all my friends, especially with all like airsoft and the things of, nah, you're a Marine, you got this. So it was good. It was good. It was like a really good with like war movie sci-fi.
All right, I'll fill the silence because I have so much to say. I think that Suzanne was referring to being like the fingers of God, the organic ships were. Yeah, and I was like, oh, there goes the king of figurative language. You always have something awesome like that in there. And you're not afraid to push it into something really massive. And you know, you ride that borderline of maybe like almost being too figurative or like too florid with it, but I don't think you get there. I think that it's just like you're giving us an epic scene, and so epic figurative language does describe it. And so those fingers of God, and then there were these thundering hooves, and I was like, oh, the contrast, you know, you've got like alien beings that have come to a planet from somewhere else, and yet there's something with hooves trying to fight them underneath. And so that contrast of power was just amazing. And I was, you know, kind of on a Martianscape, because I can't do any better than that. There was lots of rocks, but there was dust. And, you know, the filling, I just had a setting in my mind that I thought you implied enough of. And then there was one more thing. Did I write it? Oh, I didn't even write it down because I was just listening. You had them, the hooves, the Marines, and I remember thinking, I don't have it now. But when Lang says, like hell we are, that dialogue was fantastic, because this is a terrifying moment. They're probably all going to die. And Lang's like, I'm not going to show that in my exterior character. And we have no idea if he's dying on the inside. Like, of course we're going to die. And neither do the people who are working with him. And so he's just like, act like a Marine. And that, you know, I mean, I was in the Air Force, but it rang really true. That he'd be like, the only way to get people to like stiffen their spine and do what they're supposed to do is to stiffen my own and model it. And he really did. So I was definitely drawn into this sense of it's the last hurrah to save the planet from these horrible things that have come. I want to remember. I'm sorry.
There was another piece of figurative language where he had talked
Yes.
about being flung about like toys. I
Yes.
think that one really stood out to me, again, for the contrast that you had talked about between the forces and then the alien beings, or the hooves and the alien beings. There was also like this weird, I mean, like toys, like this childlike playground, but it's way more of a serious situation, right? I really liked that one. That one really stuck out to me. Was
Thank
that
you.
it?
That was the one. That was the one I was
Yay!
thinking. Yeah. And what I wanted to say about that was it also helped show the dynamic for, I think it's the Naga that came. Killing these people was like tossing toys. And for the Marines in the trench, this is their life, right? So it showed us, you know, how the Naga don't even have a sense or care or whatever. They're just, so yeah. You write epic well. And then what I wanted to say, last thing, I was thinking how well you write epic as you were watching all the people being evacuated, but then the dust brushes across Lane's face. And, you know, so you go from the world is ending and he's standing in dust. And I am Janet Fitch talks about this in her writing workshops, but you go from this epic thing happening and you bring us down. And by doing that sensory detail, you bring us into the scene with Lane. So we've been watching a massive thing happen, and then we end up on the ground with him. You take us massive again, but it's from his perspective with dirt having just flown across his face. So we are with him and in his moment as readers, instead of staying at the like 30,000 viewpoint watching it happen. So really nicely done, Randall.
Thank you.
Okay, so we should do one more because we are running out of time. This prompt, I say the word morning in it, but it doesn't have to be in the morning. It can be any time that you or your character regularly is seeing somebody, like every work day or every day of their lives or whatever, and then take it from there. So the prompt is, each morning for many years, you and one other person were in the same place at the same time. Again, you can modify that. Say you had lunch with somebody at work every year, and this next sentence is, this was the first time they weren't there right about the moment. So, you know, for example, after my first husband dumped me, I might write about the fact that we had coffee together every morning. And the first time after he said he didn't want to be married anymore, I could write about the first coffee morning where he wasn't there, right? So something that works for you, it can be in your epic fantasy world, your sci-fi world, and it could be in your personal world. It can be literary fiction. It can be whatever you want. Okay, so everybody, on your marks, get set, write. And it laughed. Your pencil, that's it. Let's find out what you got. I edited 3 sentences. There you are. Did it go well this time?
No. I'll say it. I have a lot of crossed out sentences in directions I didn't go, but I guess that's good too, right? In a way.
Everybody, what do you think?
As
about
long as
the
you're
way-
writing,
Right?
What'd you say, Sarah?
as long as you're writing.
Yes. What about all those crossed out sentences?
Stories for another day.
Sure. And who does it sound like was present in Jesse's head?
The editor.
Mm.
You gotta
Yeah.
let that inner editor go, man, and
I
just find out
know.
where is
Jesse, you're gonna make her drop down to only giving us 4 minutes if you keep doing that.
That's a great idea. We're gonna have to do that next
I'll
time.
never do it again.
Better yet, just don't tell us when you do it. You didn't know that the inner editor has been banished from these writing sessions.
Yeah.
And I'll confess, so I've been actually writing with my writing group in OMAC. When we do the timing, they want me to write because I think I'm in trouble for acting like I don't have to write. So and I cross out a few things too, because sometimes it's just not making sense. So I tease you, and it's just a reminder that if you can turn off that inner editor, that's the most important thing, because I think that's how both Sarah and Randall ended up going directions they didn't expect to go. Is you're like, oh, where are we going with this? And you just go, and then you find out what happens.
Wait till next time, it'll get even better.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, after
Yeah.
you do this for a while, Jesse, I mean,
Mhm.
I know Sarah, Suzanne, and Randall, you've all been here through, I mean, this is at least your 3rd term showing up for these Saturday workshops. And Sarah, you've been showing up for a year or more. Anyway, your writing does really cool things if you keep it up. That's all. This compressed writing, the ability to just take off and let control go.
Mhm.
You'll be amazed at what happens.
Oh, I'm
And-
excited for it. Yeah.
And you can
I'm
feel
pretty
like-
sure you just volunteered to read first.
I did, because it's not a lot. So I'll go
but it's
for it.
brilliant.
Yeah, it absolutely is very brilliant. Thank you so much for recognizing that.
Even before we heard it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. My granddaddy and I worked the fields together every morning. So one morning, instead of jostling my quilt, he went out to the fields alone and never came back. Heat stroke, Daddy said that evening after he found him spread out amongst the shriveled vines of his watermelon patch. He's laid out like he was taking a nap, covered in a threadbare blanket of green and brown. And that is where the editor started getting angry with me.
Oh, so like this stuff was already growing over him?
Well, yeah. So this is for one of the short story ideas I have. Can I explain where it came from? Is that okay?
Sure.
My grandpa-
15 minutes.
Oh, okay. I was legitimately terrified of watermelon until I was like 7, because my grandpa told me that if I ate a watermelon seed, I would grow a watermelon in my belly. And so this story idea. I was canning beans this week, and as I was canning them, I just remembered that and just got this idea about a family of people that turn into their vegetables when it's time to go. So
Everybody else, what do you think?
Made me think of that story with the peach trees.
mhm. I don't know it. How does
Suzanne,
it go?
Randall?
I really like that, especially like helping out my grandparents' farm. And except we did peas, and oh boy, it's I feel like the peas are gonna overtake me. So when you had that detail, I was like, oh dang, like I love that with the watermelons. So that was fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great concept for a story. I want to read it whenever you're finished. It's great.
Okay, yeah, I'll post it.
Don't we all, I mean, and I think maybe Pan's Labyrinth, the book and the movie plays off this idea of what we get told when we're kids can have a kernel of truth in it. And I
Mm.
love the idea that this truth comes true and this kid is going to witness it and be like, I'm never eating a vegetable again because this could happen to me. So turning into the vegetables that they farm, yes, but also the kid would be like, how do I keep this from happening to me? Right.
Yeah.
So, a really great start. Oh my goodness. It was brilliant.
Thanks.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I
Sarah's
can
making
go
eye
next.
contact. What? You going, Suzanne?
Oh, I can go unless Sarah, if you want to go now, do it.
Go for it.
Okay, it's Suzanne's turn.
One thing I thought would always be constant is the sun rising, the coffee being burned, and you there with the morning paper. Now it became two truths and a lie as I scraped back on the wooden chair that needed to get leveled and sat with the burned coffee with the deafening silence. There's a large bouquet of white flowers with platitudes that were supposed to patch up my emptied heart. This time, not even a mom's kiss could fix this ache. I pushed away, the table sticky with beer spilled and disappointment filling my sinuses. I thought my burned black coffee would be the only bitter thing I tasted today, but I didn't count on your absence tasting more bitter.
I love it. I want to know what happened. Like, for it to be this devastating. Did he die? Did he just leave? Like the flowers lead me to believe maybe a death, but
And is it
Yeah.
like a dad or a boyfriend or a
right.
girlfriend, whatever? What
Yeah, and they was supposed to be like the grandpa, but 6 minutes, almost there.
It would take very little to turn that into a grandpa though. Like 1 or 2 words could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just thank you for letting the editor not put them in there yet.
Yes.
Randall or Sarah, do you have anything to add for Suzanne?
The phrase that stuck out to me was, I think you said disappointment in my sinuses. Yeah, I like that. That was very cool.
Yeah. Definitely that pricky feeling. Sarah, anything?
I also liked the correlation between the bitterness of the coffee and the taste in her mouth. It was, like you could, I took it as maybe she's bitter about why this person is no longer with her.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Also, I was a little surprised that the coffee was still burned because I kind of expected that to have been something that the grandfather did. And so that maybe the coffee would taste different that next morning because he didn't make it.
See, I was going to do that, but then I was like, inner editor, I already said 2 truths and a lie.
Well, you could play with that phrase and have 2 lies and a truth.
I like that.
I mean, that's why have cliches if we can't turn them on their heads? And it wasn't cliche when you put it in there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm using the wrong word for what that is.
But no, it is a cliche. But yeah, no, yeah, I love that. I love that.
Not a cliche, it's a, I have a book of them, it's an idiom, right? Isn't that an idiom to do two truths and a lie is something that we do in English, right? And you're just shifting it. I might have that word wrong.
Turn a phrase. I don't know.
I have had coffee, so there's no excuse for this right now. Except for I am exhausted. Anybody else? Anything to add? I want to try to get us to land at 10:30. I'm very bad about this, and we run over a few minutes, and I'm trying not to. So, who would like to read next then? Thanks.
I'll go.
Thanks, Sarah.
Mom, I remember how every day I'd call you while driving home from work. The rush hour traffic existed, but it didn't matter. This was our time. Approximately an hour every weekday, I'd share about my day. You listened happily to hear my voice regardless of the words. I remember one day you didn't answer my call, so I called 3 more times. You never miss my calls. I pulled off to the side, the road's shoulder, honks mixing with my tires crushing at the gravel. The 4th call was to the Madison Police Department, which initiated a wellness check. They called me back within 20 minutes. I couldn't trust my breathing, let alone my driving, so I was still parked on the side of the road. I answered before the first ring finished. I'm sorry, ma'am. We are transferring her by ambulance to the ER. It looks like she cut herself in an attempt to end her life.
Ooh.
That was an unexpected twist.
Yeah. Especially with the consistency of their calls. Wow. Okay, what do you all think?
One detail that stuck out to me was the car being stuck on the side of the road, but it was also kind of symbolic of like her life had suddenly become stuck. Like there was this accepted, normal, assumed pace that life was going to take, even if it was in the traffic jam, even if it was slow moving. And then suddenly it all screeches to a stop, just the car and the life.
Thank you.
What else?
I
loved
really
how-
go
You
for
go
it. Go for
first.
it.
Oh my God. Okay. I love how relatable it was. Really, this is like, I used to call my mom every day driving home too. So I was really in that scene with it and thinking about how horrible that was, and you were so descriptive with how, the narrator was feeling in that moment of waiting, of not knowing. And yeah, that was just really evocative. It was great.
Yeah, I really liked like the sensory detail of like the car crunching on the gravel, but then also when you mentioned like you didn't trust your breathing to like go back on the road, and without like saying how panicked you were feeling or like the character is feeling, like having the character just like wait on the side of the road was so relatable to be like, I'm not safe to drive. I need to know this answer. And that's the only thing you can think about. And you were able to pack in so much of that without like just being like, this is exactly what the character is experiencing. So that was amazing.
Thank you.
Let's add to that. The thoughts mixing with the gravel, that was, I thought, amazing. And then you had the character implying this really close relationship with the mom because she listened, and so there was that lovingness there where she really cared about what happened in the character's day every day. And yet the first thing she does is call a wellness check, and so we know the character knows how fragile this relationship is with her mom, and it's this complicated. Her mom really loves her and yet is still the kind of person who might try to end her life. And so if you were expanding on this, I mean, that gives you a place to go. This would be an amazing opening to talk about a complicated relationship between this character and her mother. Yeah. Anybody have anything you want to add? Wow. Okay, I think we're down to Randall and we might land it. Randall, do you want to read what you got?
Sure. She wasn't at the bus stop this morning. 3 years of riding to work through this dismal city, and she was the only dandelion poking through the concrete. I imagined talking to her or where she might be going. My self-esteem was a wall of lead against that radiation, and I had never found out the truth. Still, 3 years convinced me that I had all the time in the world. Yet each day a knot rose in my throat, and I got off the bus at the office, content in knowing that I would see her tomorrow. An ambulance went by as I waited in the rain, its siren echoing crazily in the hollow confines of the bus stop. Was she inside? Was she sick, or running late, or hurt? Maybe she lost her job, or found a better route than the miserable, bumpy bus. The brakes squealed as the bus announced its arrival. I looked up and down the sidewalk, and then stepped into the musty bus before it accelerated away.
That was earthbound and wonderful. What drew you in, everybody?
One of the opening, the figurative language we talked about earlier that he always uses, the dandelion poking through concrete. I just, that's, even if you only say that, I just know so much about this person already. You know, like, you can use all the other cliche ones like, sorry, sunshine on a cloudy day and whatnot. But yeah, that was really nice. I liked that.
Yeah, that's my favorite line too.
I will agree. Yep. I'm not gonna lie. I also liked how like assigning the stories of like hoping for the best for someone when you have like this routine and like coming up like with their stories without actually ever talking to them, if I heard that right. But it was real good. It was really good.
Make sure Donna doesn't have anything to add because I've been not very generous with that. Yeah, so the wall of lead and the radiation, like, so definitely this implication that he's too shy to talk to her, but he's made up all these ideas. So then the ambulance could or couldn't have her. Does she have another job? Does she have all these things? And then you have the setting work for you in that the ambulance echoed in the bus stop. So he was contained in this moment where he wasn't changing and he wasn't going to change, but his life had changed despite him not changing. And that's one thing we talk about in these stories where the character will usually change in their worldview in some way from the beginning to the end of a story. And despite his best effort to stay exactly the same, he is changed by the events that happen around him. So that's just a really cool thing. And then he steps on the musty bus and it pulls away. And that shows us that his life continues down this sort of just uninteresting pathway. And the only good thing in it has now disappeared. And despite his best efforts, because the one thing we can count on is change, right? The world changes around him. It's really nicely done. Any questions for us? This has been an amazing session. I'm going to stop the recording really quick so that I can finish out.